She was a maid in a millionaire's mansion, but then her surprising calling as a mom was revealed. Maria dragged her mop across the gleaming marble floor, each stroke another reminder of the life she had left behind in Mexico. The chandeliers above sparkled with opulence while she labored in obscurity, trapped in the whirlwind of luxury that surrounded her. The echo of the children's laughter from the living room felt like a foreign melody, one she ached to understand but knew she couldn't. As she bent down, scrubbing harder, a painful thought flickered through her mind. The dreams she held for her children, so far away, seemed to dissolve under the weight of her financial burdens. Could she ever secure their future while chained to this mansion, always the maid, never the mother? That day, the storm began subtly, with darkened clouds gathering and the soft rumble of thunder reverberating through the walls. But within moments it transformed into a fierce tempest, rain pounding against the steel-gray windows, wind howling like a wild thing. The mansion's luxurious facade cracked, revealing the darkness lurking beneath. Maria felt a familiar unease, the tension mirroring the emotions swirling in her heart. Every shout from upstairs, every frightened cry from the children, pricked at her conscience. Her instincts kicked in. She rushed upstairs, her own turmoil rendered irrelevant as she stepped into their world of panic. As the lights flickered and drowned in darkness, she found the affluent couple's teenagers huddled together, fear etched into their young faces. They gazed up at Maria, their eyes wide, searching for solace in the storm. Without thinking, she enveloped them in her arms, her body instinctively calming them, whispering words of comfort that blended her two worlds. In their embrace, her heart surged with a strange warmth, a long-buried calling bubbling to the surface. Before she knew it, she was wiping away tears and sharing stories of home, stories they had never asked for but that felt suddenly necessary. Maria reveled in her maternal instincts. Could these children, towering and privileged, truly understand what it meant to feel needed? As the storm raged outside, she found clarity. With every heartbeat, a question echoed within her: was she ready to accept these moments as part of her life, or would it forever remain just a fleeting connection? The chaos around her escalated, the cries of confusion mingling with the roar of the storm. Tentatively, the parents began to watch her, realization dawning: Maria was the anchor their children had sought amidst the surging turmoil. The storm outside swirled into an unexpected wave of change. They offered her more responsibilities, a higher status, an opportunity that would bring hope to her children. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maria's heart raced. She stood at a crossroads, eyes darting between the frightened teenagers who craved her presence and the echoes of her own children, voiceless thousands of miles away. Was it selfishness or ambition that held her back? What if embracing this new role severed her ties to her own family? Agony twisted in her gut, each thought a weight on her chest. She could accept the offer, but at what cost? Her spirit wrestled with guilt, longing to elevate her children, yet tethered to a new responsibility that felt tantalizingly close. The tension coiled tighter as the storm continued its assault, an echo of the storms clashing inside her heart. The children, once strangers, were now the soft light she yearned to illuminate, yet the phone's dreaded vibration broke through her thoughts. A call from home, from that life she desperately tried to support, brought with it devastating news that struck deep. Caught between two worlds that now felt irreconcilable, Maria faced the undeniable truth: being a mother was no longer just about providing, but nurturing a bond that rippled across time and space. Each second poised her at the edge of transformation, yet left her with the chilling knowledge that time was slipping away. Would she take the leap, and if so, what storms would she have to weather next? The storm finally subsided, leaving behind a haunting stillness that clung to the mansion like a ghost. Maria stood rooted to the spot, the phone still pressed against her ear, its notification reverberating in her mind like a dark echo. Her heart sank as the reality of her situation coalesced. She was not only miles away from her own children but also potentially distancing herself even further by embracing this new role. The fear etched into the faces of the teenagers had faded reluctantly, replaced by a solemn understanding. They looked to her now not just with fear but with a fledgling trust, an unspoken agreement forming in the air. Could she really be what they needed? And could she do so without forsaking her own aspirations for her children back home? The dilemma twisted in her mind like a tangled vine, choking her resolve. As night fell and shadows danced across the walls, Maria gathered her thoughts. Alone in the luxurious hallway, she began to analyze her options. Accepting the new role could bring financial stability to her family, perhaps even allowing her to provide her children with opportunities she once deemed a distant dream. Yet, if she failed, could she live with the potential rupture between her and her own kids? The burden of dual responsibilities weighed heavily on her heart. With determination gathering within her, she wandered through the elegantly furnished rooms, tracing her fingers over priceless artwork and sumptuous fabrics. Each piece brought with it the sharp contrast of her past, the humility of her upbringing stark against the backdrop of opulence surrounding her. A flicker of resentment flashed momentarily, overshadowed by the harsh reality of her choices. She had worked tirelessly for this position, but at what cost? The next day, Maria found herself involved more deeply with the family. Despite her internal chaos, she began planning activities for the children, catalyzing laughter and creativity in the evenings. The initially uncomfortable role shifted as they began to confide in her. Teenage angst and dreams spilled forth like secrets shared under the stars. Her heart swelled with an unfamiliar sense of belonging, yet each joyous moment resonated with a bittersweet chord. In unexpected moments, a victorious basketball shot, a shared joke, a time spent reading together, she felt like a mother. And yet, there was a gnawing sense that she was losing pieces of her own maternal identity. The hearts she was nurturing were not her own, the hurt from her children's absence overshadowed every joy. One quiet afternoon, while sorting through the children's art projects, she stumbled upon a note hidden within a drawing. "Can you be our mom forever?" It read in childlike lettering. Shock coursed through her as clarity struck. A warmth she thought lost ignited once again. She wanted to be there for them, but could she truly fulfill both roles, bridging the gap between them and her distant family? Her reflection was interrupted by the arrival of the parents, their expressions a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. They had watched her transform their home, breathing new life into their children's world. With the weight of their expectations now resting solidly on her shoulders, the stakes had never been clearer. This was no longer just about work, it was about redefining her identity. Maria took a deep breath and stepped forward, prepared to face whatever decision awaited her. "I need to talk to you," she said, her heart pounding, unsure if her voice would falter. The air crackled with uncertainty as she prepared to unveil her truth. What would they think? And would she find the strength to navigate yet another storm? Maria's statement hung in the air like a blade, poised to slice through the delicate atmosphere of the room. The parents exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering across their faces. She realized this was not merely a conversation about logistics, it was a dialogue that could reshape the very fabric of their lives. "I've been reflecting on my role here," she continued, already feeling the weight of their perception bearing down on her. There was a burgeoning sense of purpose making its way through the veil of her anxiety. "I want to ensure that I'm not just fulfilling obligations but genuinely supporting your family." Mr. Klein leaned forward, eyebrows knitting together. "Maria, we've seen how you've connected with our children. They look up to you. Your efforts haven't gone unnoticed." His acknowledgement ignited a flame within her. "Thank you, but I can't ignore the feeling that I'm also stretching myself too thin. I want to support them, but I have my own children back home." Every syllable was like a tightrope walk, balancing her aspirations against the responsibilities pulling her in two different directions. Mrs. Klein's expression softened, and she nodded. "We understand. You care deeply, and that's what makes you so valuable to our family." But you should know you're fulfilling this role doesn't require you to sacrifice your own happiness or connection with your children. What matters is finding a balance. A flicker of hope glinted in Maria's chest, but that hope clashed with the swirling emotions deep within. Should she bend her newfound purpose to service their desires? Could she still forge an identity while being just the help rather than being something more? However, confronting her limitations felt like a step towards liberation. The conversation continued, shifting toward practicalities and scheduling. Maria could sense a newfound clarity as she focused her energy on discussing creative solutions, flexible hours that allowed her to stay connected with her family back home, regular check-ins via video calls, and the potential to bring her own children for visits. With each suggestion, the oppressive weight on her shoulders began to lift, if only slightly. As the discussion wound down, a sudden realization pierced through the veil of her thoughts. She was not just an employee, she had become an integral part of their family dynamic. Empowered by this revelation, she fortified her resolve to embrace both her roles. But just as the seeds of determination began to bloom, a sharp noise drifted from outside. A car engine sputtered, and Maria turned towards the window, her heart racing. An unfamiliar vehicle was parked at the entrance. The engine cut off and, a moment later, a figure stepped out. Anxiety coiled around her abdomen as curiosity clashed with trepidation. What was that? Mrs. Klein turned her head toward the window. Maria swallowed hard, the previous warmth of the conversation chilled by a sudden wave of uncertainty. I don't know, she said, each word textured with foreboding. But it looks like someone is visiting. The reality of her dual life threatened to swell into something undisclosed and tumultuous. Would this newcomer disrupt the delicate balance she was forging? Would the burdens from her past collide violently with her present? As she caught a glimpse of the figure striding towards the mansion, Maria's mind raced. Who could it be, and how might they shake the foundations she was trying so hard to build? The storm of uncertainty loomed larger, ready to unleash yet another wave of transformation. The figure drew closer, and Maria felt her pulse quicken, a mixture of dread and intrigue flooding her senses. She couldn't make out the person's features, shrouded as they were by the dimming light of the late afternoon. Mrs. Klein's curiosity mirrored her own, the two women now united in an unspoken apprehension. Who do you think it is? Mrs. Klein murmured, glancing sideways at Maria, searching for reassurance. I have no idea, Maria replied, a knot tightening in her stomach. She had consciously stepped into a role that demanded not just attention but emotional investment, an investment that would be tested if her past rolled back into her present. The unfamiliar visitor approached the grand entrance, and Maria felt an instinctual urge to step outside, to intercept whatever was about to unfold. But she remained rooted in place, the implications of her past holding her captive. What would this person say? What could they reveal that might jeopardize the fragile balance she had just begun to secure? As the door opened, the light framed the newcomer, a tall woman with an air of confidence that sent a shiver down Maria's spine. Her long hair swayed gently with each measured step inside, and there was something familiar in the way she carried herself. The initial shock enveloped Maria, a tremor of recognition. It can't be. Maria's thoughts spiraled as the woman stepped into the living room, a smile breaking forth that was as striking as it was disconcerting. Surprise, Maria. It's me, Gabriella. The woman exclaimed, her voice a harmonious mixture of warmth and mischief. Maria's heart sank, confusion swirling with a sense of betrayal. Gabriella had been a childhood friend, someone she thought she left behind along with her old life. Seeing her now, after years of silence, felt like an emotional bombshell detonating beneath her carefully constructed facade. What are you doing here? Maria managed to articulate, caught off guard, her gaze flickering anxiously between Mrs. Klein and Gabriella. I found out where you were. I had to see you, to talk to you. Gabriella's enthusiasm felt jarring against Maria's simmering trepidation. The room seemed to constrict, as if time itself was watching this reunion. Memories of their shared past danced in Maria's head, their ambitious dreams, the laughter, and the struggles that had once felt so binding yet now seemed so distant. Would Gabriella expose her precarious situation? Would this reunion unearth long-buried flaws and insecurities? It's really great to see you, but maybe not here. Maria's voice faltered, aware of the tumult invading her carefully maintained equilibrium. Gabriella's gaze softened, and she stepped closer, leaning in slightly. I've missed you, Maria. We have so much to catch up on. You can't hide away forever, can you? With those words, Maria felt the weight of her past and future colliding. This was not merely a conversation about reconnecting, it was a confrontation with everything she had changed from, and perhaps a call to evaluate everything she had become. As the walls of her present began to crack, a decision loomed before her: open a door to the past or firmly shut it, paving the way instead for a new identity. This unexpected encounter forced her to reevaluate what she truly wanted: safety, connection, or the pursuit of her own truth. Before she could form a response, the tension thickened. Would she reclaim a part of her that was lost alongside her friend, or would she choose to protect the life she was striving to build? Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the doorbell echoed through the mansion, a persistent, demanding sound that promised more upheaval. What awaited her on the other side? Maria hesitated, caught in the throbbing moment as the bell rang again, more insistent this time. The juxtaposition of Gabriella's bright smile against the shadows of her past piled on the pressure, challenging Maria to define her next move. Did she have the strength to confront the remnants of her former life right there in front of Mrs. Klein, or would she allow fear to dictate her response? Just a moment, she called, feeling the weight of expectation from both women. She stepped toward the heavy oak door, each step sending a jolt of uncertainty through her. Taking a breath, Maria pulled the door open. Standing before her was a man with an air of urgency, his expression tense and determined. "I'm looking for Gabriella Quintero," he stated, his voice low yet clear, pressing against the fragile atmosphere enveloping Maria. "Who wants to know?" She instinctively blocked the doorway, though her heart raced with curiosity mixed with an uneasy sense of foreboding. "Listen, it's important. I don't have time to explain everything right now. She needs to know." Maria felt a rush of protective instincts surge within her, the need to safeguard her newfound stability flooding her thoughts. But Gabriella had already slipped past her, drawn by the man's urgency, their shared history urging her to embrace what Maria feared. "I'll talk to him," Gabriella said, her tone breezy, too relaxed for the gravity of the situation. "Wait," Maria tried to interject, but the door had swung wide, leaving her outside the panorama she desperately wanted to control. The walls of the living room felt claustrophobic now, insistently closing in, as Maria thrust her back against them. Was she ready to face the implications of Gabriella's sudden re-entrance into her life? Her mind raced through the possibilities. What if the man was bringing news that could shatter the present she was working so hard to build? What if he was tied to the past she was determined to escape? "Maria, it's okay. I want to hear what he has to say." Gabriella's tone changed, a hint of gravity lacing her usual charisma. The confrontation felt imminent, almost suffocating, sparking doubt within her that festered like an open wound. The voice of her past echoed her fears, self-doubt and hesitation looming like storm clouds, threatening to unleash chaos. "Listen, I'm the one who needs to be careful here. You don't understand what's at stake," she said, the urgency in her voice matching the frantic pace of her thoughts. "How can I not understand? I'm here because I care," Gabriella fired back, frustration creeping into her tone. "You can't just shut people out, Maria. Isn't that what you were always afraid of?" Maria flinched, the truth of those words piercing her protective armor. Had she allowed her ambition to erect a shield too sturdy, one that could keep out her closest allies? Her resolve began to falter, wrestling with the idea of vulnerability and connection. In that moment, the man caught sight of Maria's uncertainty. "Look, I apologize for the abruptness. But this is about your future too. You need to know," he asserted, his gaze fixed on her with a determination that made her question everything. Instinctively, she stepped forward into the fray, her mind racing to locate her footing amidst shifting allegiances. Maybe it was time to reclaim her narrative, not just for herself but for those she had left behind. "All right, then let us talk," she finally said, fortifying her resolve. It was a decision tinged with unease, but also with the flicker of newfound empowerment. Could this interaction really pave the way for a deeper understanding of herself and the life she was forging? With her heart pounding, Maria gestured for them to follow her into the living room, feeling both the weight and liberation of her choice. If she was to face her past, she would do so on her terms, intent on uncovering the truth that lay ahead. But would opening this door lead her to redemption or deeper chaos? Only the coming moments would reveal the truth of her quest for identity. As she settled into the tension, she knew. One thing was clear, the stakes had just escalated. Who was this man, and how did he fit into the fabric of her evolving story? As Maria led them into the living room, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. The tremor in her hands betrayed her composure. Each step deeper into the space felt like an invocation of the past she was trying to shake off. Gabriella and the man settled onto the worn leather sofa, the sunlight streaming through the window illuminating their solemn faces. "What is going on?" Gabriella asked, her light-hearted demeanor toned down, the earlier ease vanishing beneath the palpable tension. The man shifted slightly, the urgency coiling within him manifesting in his fidgeting hands. "I'm here because it concerns your father, Gabriella." The words hung heavy in the air, twisted with implications that Maria could almost see swirling like ash. Maria observed Gabriella's expression shift from curiosity to a tight-lipped acknowledgement. This was forbidden territory, a landscape riddled with dares and dangers. Instinctively, Maria entered a mental defensive position, readying herself for whatever wild card might hurl itself at her, but she couldn't ignore the ripple of fear that coursed through them both. "What do you mean?" Gabriella's voice was quieter now, less sure. "This isn't just about you. Maria too, she has a stake in this." He glanced in Maria's direction, and she felt exposed. "Why? What does my life have to do with my father?" The question sliced through the air, punctuated by Gabriella's rising confusion. "Because," he started, glancing back at the door as if expecting someone else to burst in. "There are things that both of you need to know. Your father, he hasn't been completely honest about your family's situation." Anger flared within Maria. She didn't want to dive into the mud of familial betrayal, not now, not after clawing her way to a new standard of life. Yet, curiosity devoured her caution. "What are you talking about?" she pressed, voice steady, intrigued despite herself. "The debts. The underground dealings. Your father has been living a double life for years." Each word was heavy, loaded with fears Maria thought she had buried deep. "He's involved with people you wouldn't want anywhere near you or your dreams." Silence swallowed the room, a pause where even the dust motes seemed to weigh down the conversation moving forward. Gabriella sank back into the couch, expression clouded. Maria felt an instinctive pulse of protectiveness rising, once more the desire to shield Gabriella from the calamity closing in. But Gabriella began, her voice barely a whisper. "He's always seemed so safe." "Safe is an illusion," Maria interjected, her protective instincts ignited. "We can't afford to live in delusion, Gabriella. That's the very thing I've been trying to escape." Gabriella's eyes searched Maria's face, her vulnerability laid bare with each revelation. A moment ago, they had been equals, sharing the light of ambition. Now, however, the ground felt uneven, the weight of the past seeping through flaws in their fragile foundation. They were no longer merely friends, their stories, intertwined like roots, faced a test that could either entangle or expose them. "What do we do?" Gabriella's glimmer of hope was chipped away by uncertainty. "First, we need to gather information. We'll be prepared," Maria stated with unexpected clarity, her determination overshadowing momentary paralysis. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about confronting familial truths, even painful ones, that could redefine her entire life. The realization felt like taking the first step on shaky ground, terrifying, but empowering. The man leaned forward, his expression grave yet illuminated by a semblance of camaraderie. That's a start. But we have to move quickly and decisively. He looked to Maria, as if gauging whether she was ready for the commitment ahead. As she absorbed the plan, Maria felt burgeoning resolve. Complexity threatened to overwhelm her, yet a quiet strength coursing within hinted at the capability to navigate these murky waters. Then let us find out the truth. Whatever it is, we will face it together. Maria felt the gears of her ambition shift, one bold choice leading her closer to her authentic self. The path ahead was blurred and uncertain, yet upon that misty horizon lay the possibility of understanding who she truly was, a possible reclamation of her identity that went beyond titles. What awaited them, however, lurked just beyond the shadows, ready to challenge everything she believed. As they stood on the precipice of discovery, she felt it, the time had come to unearth secrets that could either unite them further or rip apart everything she had worked to build. Who would they become once the skeletons emerged, and was Maria willing to embrace the consequences that awaited? The flickering light played tricks on the walls as tension coiled around Gabriella and Maria. The conversation had shifted, their futures now tethered to painful truths that were beginning to unravel. So, where do we start? Gabriella asked, her voice steadier than Maria expected, yet laced with a quiver of anxiety. First, we need to identify who's involved, Maria replied, instinctively drawing upon her analytical skills. The chaos of the situation sharpened her focus. She could almost feel the urgency of the moment transforming her into someone more proactive, someone in control. We need to find out everything about the debts, who your father owes money to, if that man is right about the dealings. Gabriella nodded, swallowing hard. The weight of it all pressed down on them like a storm cloud ready to burst. And if they come after us? Her gaze darted momentarily to the door, the fear evident in her eyes. Maria met her gaze, a flicker of her old self igniting within her. Then we need a plan, one that puts us in charge. Fear has been my cage for too long. We can't let it dictate our next move. Emboldened, Maria's thoughts danced around potential strategies. She had spent years navigating the complexities of life as a maid, learning to read people and situations, recognizing patterns even in chaos. Those skills wouldn't just serve her in handling dishes or cleaning floors, they were tools she could use now. We can start by talking to people who may know something, family, friends, anyone who had contact with your father's other life. Right, Gabriella responded, her voice pushed by a swell of resolve. But we need to be careful. If he's involved with dangerous people, we can't raise suspicion. As they discussed potential contacts, Maria felt a gnawing uncertainty within her. They were stepping onto a tightrope where one wrong move could see everything they had worked for crumble. How did she know that their inquiries wouldn't spiral into the very darkness they wanted to avoid? Maria, Gabriella interrupted her spiraling thoughts, breaking through the fog of her worries. Are you sure you want to do this? You don't have to if it's too much. The question cut deep, reverberating within her consciousness. It wasn't just the stakes at hand, but the very essence of who she was. Here was a chance to confront not only external struggles but also the internal battles she'd fought for years. I have to do this, she said, her voice firmer than before. This isn't just about your father anymore, it's about the truth. And whatever skeletons lie in the shadows, we'll face them together. With renewed conviction, they both devised an approach. Maria would reach out to the family network, while Gabriella would look for contacts from her father's business associates. Their assignments felt like taking two distinct paths, yet their convergence was inevitable, driven by the bulging tension stretching between them. As they left the cozy familiarity of the living room, the world outside felt colder, a stark contrast to the warmth they'd fostered moments before. Maria's heart pounded with each step, fear mingled with an exhilarating sense of purpose. She realized she was on the brink of a deeper evolution. There was no turning back now. This entanglement with Gabriella would redefine her choices, her ambitions. Maria paused at the door, a sudden thought jolting through her mind. What if your father is embroiled in something even darker than we imagined? What if he is in real danger? Gabriella hesitated, her face pale. I cannot lose him, Maria. I just can't. A new resolve ignited within Maria. Someone had to protect Gabriella's heart, even if it meant facing the unthinkable. Suddenly, the stakes transcended their immediate plight. They were tethered not just by ambition, but something deeper, loyalty. The nights ahead would be long, fraught with revelations and dread. The hunt for truth had begun, but every avenue they explored could pull them deeper into danger. Would they emerge stronger, or would the shadows consume them, as they each took their first steps? A part closer to discovery yet farther from safety, a sense of dread wrapped itself around Maria. Discovering the truths could unravel not just the fabric of their lives, but pierce through the illusion of safety she'd built. Would the truth be their salvation, or would it lead to a confrontation with a past lurking just beyond their reach? The air was thick with uncertainty as Maria navigated the narrow streets, each step heavy with the weight of the impending investigations. Her mind swirled with names, faces, and the potential threads of lies tangled within Gabriella's father's dealings. She had been a silent observer for too long, and the thought of taking a decisive role filled her with both thrill and trepidation. Determined to emerge from the shadows of servitude, she reviewed her strategy like an analyst gearing up for battle. The old acquaintances of Gabriella's father would be her first point of contact. She'd summon the courage to reach out to each one, probing gently for information while maintaining the guise of concern for the family's well-being. It was a delicate dance, one where revealing too much too soon could easily trap them in an elaborate web of danger. Maria stopped at a small cafe, the kind she knew well. It was cheap and unpretentious, perfect for an undercover meeting. She ordered a coffee and settled at a corner table, her heart racing as she wrote down the first lead. Carlos, a former associate of Gabriella's father, was known for his loose tongue and tragic tales of foolish investments. In many ways, Maria felt an odd kinship with him. She too was navigating a precarious existence filled with poorly made choices and dreams deferred. As she sipped her coffee, she pondered her own evolution, how she had transitioned from a girl caught in survival mode to a woman ready to confront formidable challenges. Each connection she made would require courage, but it also forced her to acknowledge a newfound resilience within herself. She was not just a maid anymore, she was an investigator, a protector, and perhaps, with every conversation, she could inch closer to reclaiming not just Gabriella's safety, but also her sense of self. However, a nagging worry clung to her every thought. What if the people she approached didn't respond positively? The potential backlash of uncovering disturbing truths loomed over her like a dark cloud. It wasn't just about gathering information, it was about drawing boundaries and ensuring her involvement didn't invite more danger into their lives. After finishing her coffee, Maria stood and took a deep breath, reminding herself of the stakes. This was no longer merely about finding dirt, it was a chance to forge a new identity, one that stood firm against vulnerability. As she navigated the unfamiliar neighborhoods, a sense of excitement replaced her apprehension. The potential for discovery danced tantalizingly close, and she was ready to snap the pieces together. Carlos was supposed to meet her later that afternoon. Yet, as she approached the meeting spot, a knot began to form in her stomach. What if he had been compromised? What if he turned on them? She needed to keep her wits about her and couldn't afford to slip, not when the stakes felt so dangerously high. Arriving at the designated spot, she scanned the area, her instincts on high alert. A small group gathered off to one side, their laughter cutting through the tension she felt. This was no ordinary cafe. This was a hub for whispers and clandestine exchanges, a backdrop for what was at stake. As she waited, a sudden flash of realization struck her. If Carlos had something to hide, he might not be the only danger lurking in the corners of their lives. She resolved to tread carefully, ready to adapt and shift strategies if needed. She could no longer afford to be passive, she had to assert control over her fate, and the fate of those she cared about. The heavy silence filled the air as Maria waited. Every second stretched, heavy with anticipation. Could she truly navigate these treacherous waters without losing herself along the way? The moment had come for more than revelations, it was a chance for transformation, but as the clock ticked, the question surged within her, amplifying her anxiety. What awaited her when the truth finally emerged, and would she be prepared for the consequences? A figure appeared on the horizon, urging her heart to race faster. This wasn't just a meeting, it marked the beginning of a confrontation she neither expected nor felt ready to face. Carlos approached slowly, his posture slouched, hands tucked in his pockets. There was a shadow of uncertainty in his eyes that mirrored Maria's apprehension. As he neared, the reality of their situation settled heavier on Maria's shoulders. This was not merely a casual meeting, it was an encounter that could alter the course of their lives. "Maria," he said flatly, his voice cracking slightly. "I didn't think you'd show." "I had to," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need to talk about Gabriella's father." Carlos shifted, discomfort flooding his features. "You really shouldn't be here. This is dangerous ground." "Then why did you agree to meet?" she pressed, her determination sharpening. A flicker of something, fear, or perhaps guilt, crossed his face. "I believed you needed answers. But I didn't think you'd have the guts to actually pursue this." In that moment, Maria's pulse quickened. She was daring to tread paths that had remained unwalked for far too long, fueled by desperation now more than hope. "If things are as bad as I think they are, then I need your help." Carlos hesitated, glancing around as if the walls themselves had ears. With a sigh, he leaned closer. "All right. But you need to understand that this could blow back on you. I've seen what danger looks like when someone starts digging." Those words hung in the air, and for a second, fear flickered inside her, but it was quickly extinguished by something deeper, a fierce resolve. Maria straightened her posture, grounding herself. "I'm tired of being afraid. I want to know the truth, for Gabriella, for myself." Carlos's expression shifted, he seemed to evaluate her with newfound respect. "You're braver than I thought. But brave doesn't mean safe. Tell me what you know," she urged, feeling her heart race not with fear, but with the adrenaline of purpose. That he glanced around again, then took a seat across from her, voice low. "Gabriella's father wasn't just involved in ordinary businesses. He had ties to some very dangerous people. That's what killed his latest ventures. Word on the street is he's in over his head, and the creditors are not the forgiving type." A chill raced down her spine. The implications of his words were profound, enveloping her mission with even more layers of urgency and importance. "Do you know who they are?" "Not exactly, but rumors suggest they're tangled with a few syndicates. If they discover you're looking into him." He trailed off, leaving the rest unspoken but painfully clear. Maria felt the weight of the risk pressing down on her chest, yet, in that moment, clarity ignited within her. This was indeed her moment to shed her previous self. "I won't back down, Carlos. I can't." He studied her for a long moment before responding, a hint of admiration in his eyes. "Then we need a plan. I can share what little I know, but you have to promise to be careful. You are the last person I'd want to see hurt." "Just tell me what I need to know," Maria insisted, emboldened. The two lost themselves in conversation, with Carlos guiding her through the labyrinth of connections and dangers surrounding Gabriella's father. As each detail unfolded, Maria felt her confidence grow, her fear morphing into a steely determination. Her life was irrevocably changing, she was shedding her former identity and embracing this new one with grit and resolve. As they concluded, Maria's thoughts raced. The truth was just the beginning. Understanding the stakes and their implications would demand another level of courage she hadn't yet tapped into, both for herself and for Gabriella. But as she departed, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her. Who was truly watching from the shadows? The lurking threat grew less abstract, becoming a haunting presence she could almost sense behind her. Would unearthing the truth protect Gabriella or push them both deeper into peril? It became clearer than ever she was now a player in a game where the rules had been set long before she arrived. And with each step away from the cafe, she felt as if she were walking into a snare of her own making. How long could she continue down this perilous path before the past caught up with her? Days turned into weeks as Maria continued to immerse herself in the intricacies of Gabriella's father's hidden life, weaving her own dreams into the fabric of a dangerous reality. Every secret unraveled, every detail uncovered, propelled her further along the path of transformation. Her life as merely a maid continued to blur with that of an investigator, a protector, and a woman destined to reclaim agency over her narrative. Her determination solidified, she began connecting with key figures in the community who had ties to Gabriella's father. Each interaction sharpened her instincts, pulling from her experiences to navigate the pitfalls of secrets and lies. The alliances she forged were tactically advantageous, each one bringing her closer to the unsettling truths lurking in the dark corners of her world. Yet, with every stride forward, Maria noticed more than just the murky dealings of others. She uncovered layers of her own resilience. The whispers of the past, those of doubt, fear, and uncertainty, faded into echoes as she stood firm against her own limitations. The once quiet nights filled with anxiety transformed into evenings of planning, strategy sessions highlighting her courage. By the end of one pivotal day, Maria found herself in a dimly lit diner, a known haunt of potential informants. Her heart raced as she waited for a scheduled meeting with Carlos, ready to dive deeper into the storm she was now orchestrating. The diner held more than the scent of fresh coffee, it cradled her ambitions. Carlos arrived, his demeanor heavier than usual. "There's been talk," he began, his voice low and conspiratorial. "People are looking for Gabriella's father. They suspect he has been skimming money, and I've heard some names. Dangerous names." Maria felt the weight of his words settle like lead in her stomach, yet they also fueled her fire. "We need to act on this," she insisted, her resolve unyielding. The ensuing discussion reverberated with urgency and fear, details sharpening her focus with ominous clarity. As they laid out a plan, Maria began to note the moment of inflection, a slow metamorphosis rippling through her. She was no longer the woman who lived in the shadow of wealth. She had transformed into someone commanding her own destiny. Later that week, with the plan in motion, Maria confronted Gabriella not just as a friend but as the architect of the truth they forward. "We need to approach your father directly," she said one evening, her voice steady, eyes locking onto Gabriella's. "I believe confronting him is the only way to clear the air and protect your family, even if it means risking safety." Gabriella's shock melted into admiration. "You're right, I can't keep hiding from the truth. I'll do it with you." A smile crept onto Maria's face, a tangible reward for their shared determination. They were unified, for the first time standing on the same ground as equals dedicated to rewriting their story. The meeting with Gabriella's father was tense, with revelations unfurling like a dangerous bloom. Maria held her ground, her voice steady as she challenged assumptions and brought light to the darkness entangling them. Gabriella, emboldened by Maria's presence, echoed her sentiments, sharing details that ignited the weight of their concerns. "We need to come clean," Maria asserted, seeing the realization dawn on Gabriella's father. "We cannot let fear hang over our heads. It's time for you to seek help to disentangle from these dealings." There was a moment of silence where time itself seemed to teeter on the edge of disbelief. But just as fear threatened to push them into retreat, resilience cut through the room. Gabriella's father, visibly shaken yet understanding the necessity of their plea, finally nodded. Together, they would navigate the maelstrom, stepping toward recovery, and for the first time, Maria felt the heartbeat of true autonomy. In this new atmosphere of hope, the final piece of her transformation fell into place. Maria had dared to advocate for herself and the ones she cherished, proving that she could traverse worlds of both power and vulnerability. With each confrontation, she had cultivated not just safety but a profound respect for her own voice and purpose. Months later, as she stood at a sunny park with Gabriella and her father, the air brimming with warmth and laughter, Maria realized the potential of new beginnings. She had forged bonds deeper than mere obligation. No longer just a maid in a lavish mansion, she had become a mother in the truest form, a protector, a leader, reflected in the eyes of those she held dear. The satisfaction of her journey resonated within her, cementing her new place in life. With every smile exchanged, she felt a grounding confidence that reached beyond past traumas, a triumphant embrace of change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it illuminated her path with golden rays, a sign of a promise fulfilled. Maria had rewritten her identity, and in doing so, she sculpted not just her future but a legacy for her children. Life no longer threatened to slip away but rather stood before her, fertile ground for dreams yet to bloom. Today, take the first step in your transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our mission of inspiring lives. Comment your reactions and theories about this journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of overcoming the darkness. Don't wait even one more second to support this movement. You need to be part of this success.